Let's dive right into today's explainer. And to start, I just want you to picture something. Imagine the steady, almost cinematic hum of an old Dakota engine vibrating right through the floorboards beneath your feet. We are stepping straight into a real mystery today, a high-altitude thriller that pulls you right into the cockpit. It's this incredible story about human limits, impossible choices, and, well, a flight into the absolute unknown.
So, things start off incredibly peacefully. It's 1:30 in the morning, the moon is just coming up in the east behind the plane, and the stars are shining in a sky that is just totally, perfectly clear. Literally not a single cloud in sight. Our pilot is flying his old Dakota high over the sleeping French countryside, heading back home to England. He's happily alone up there, just deeply lost in dreams of his upcoming holiday, eagerly looking forward to finally being with his family. And then, reality kind of taps him on the shoulder. He looks past the nose of the plane, sees the glowing lights of a big city ahead, and flips the radio switch. Paris Control, Dakota DS-088 here. Can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. Over. The response he gets is immediate and purely routine. They just tell him to turn 12 degrees west. So he checks his map, checks his compass, switches over to his second and final fuel tank, and makes the turn. Everything is going perfectly. It's just an easy, quiet flight. But then, about 150 kilometers past Paris, the whole vibe just dramatically shifts. He sees them. Storm clouds. And we're not talking about your average rain clouds here. These things are massive. They're described as looking like literal black mountains standing in front of him across the sky. It is a solid wall of weather. He instantly knows there is absolutely no way he can fly up and over them. And because he just switched to his last tank, he definitely doesn't have enough fuel to safely navigate around them to the north or the south.
Now, here is the absolute turning point of the whole story. Logic and standard procedures scream one very clear answer. Turn around, go back to Paris. But his mind is completely fixated on something else. He wants to get home. More specifically, he intensely wants that good, big English breakfast he's been daydreaming about. It's wild, but that powerful, simple human desire completely overrides all his training and caution. He just tells himself, I'll take the risk, and he flies that old Dakota straight into the belly of this monstrous storm.
The very second he enters those clouds, everything goes pitch black. It is suddenly impossible to see anything outside. The old plane starts violently jumping and twisting in the turbulent air. And then, his tethers to reality just start snapping one by one. It's a complete cascading failure. First, he glances at his compass, and it's just spinning round and round and round, completely dead. Right after that, boom, all the other instruments just die too. Finally, in sheer desperation, he tries the radio. Paris Control, nothing. Total silence. No radio, no compass, no vision. He is entirely, hopelessly lost. But right at the absolute peak of his panic, the impossible happens. Right there in the middle of those black clouds, quite near him, another airplane suddenly appears. But it's totally bizarre. It doesn't have a single light on its wings, yet somehow he can clearly see it flying right next to him through the dark storm. He looks over, and he can actually see the other pilot's face turned toward him. The stranger lifts one hand and just waves. Through all that terrifying noise and the violent jumping of the plane, the message from the strange pilot is clear and almost eerily calm. Follow me. Our narrator realizes the stranger knows he's lost and is actively trying to help. The Black Aeroplane slowly turns to the north, positioning itself right in front of the Dakota to make it easier to track. The terrified pilot is just flooded with relief. He even notes that he was happy to follow the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. But the sheer panic? Yeah, that is far from over. They fly together like this through the blackness for a full half hour. Then, the narrator checks his fuel. The old Dakota's last tank now only has enough gas to fly for another 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. 5 to 10 minutes before the engines completely quit. The fear comes rushing right back. But just at that exact moment of peak panic, the strange black plane starts to descend. The narrator follows him down through the storm, and suddenly, miraculously, he breaks out of the clouds and sees 2 long straight lines of lights. It's an airport runway. He's safe. The relief he must have felt is just unimaginable. He immediately turns his head to look for his friend in the Black Aeroplane, to see the person who literally just saved his life. But there is nothing there. The sky is completely empty. The Black Aeroplane is just gone. He frantically scans the horizon, but he can't see it anywhere. The darkness is totally silent. Now, obviously, he is incredibly relieved to just walk away from the old Dakota in one piece, but he desperately needs answers. He heads straight to the control tower, finds a woman working in the control center, and asks her where he was.
And crucially, he asks who the other pilot was, because he really wants to say thank you. She looks at him very strangely, and then she actually laughs.
She says to him, "Another airplane? Up there in this storm? No other airplanes were flying tonight." And then she delivers what has to be the most chilling twist of the entire story. "Yours was the only one I could see on the radar." Just let that incredible impossibility sink in for a second. A plane completely without lights, flying perfectly through a lethal, blinding storm, physically guiding him to the runway, and it literally did not exist on the radar.
Okay, so now that we've experienced the adrenaline of that narrative, let's take a step back. We really need to deconstruct this flight and look at the risk, the courage, and of course, that massive mystery.
Let's break down these core themes, starting with risk. This story perfectly captures how entirely mundane desires, like seriously, the fatal allure of an English breakfast and the comfort of family, can completely blind us, pushing us into incredibly dangerous situations. Then, there's the courage aspect. Once the mistake is made, survival demands a very unique kind of courage, the willingness to totally surrender control and blindly follow a complete stranger when everything around you is literally falling apart. And finally, the mystery, this impossible savior who defies all logic, technology, and radar.
And it's that exact mystery that sparks such a brilliant debate. How are we actually supposed to interpret the Black Aeroplane? Well, there are two main camps here. First, you have the literal interpretation, that it was genuinely a supernatural event, like a ghost plane or a guardian angel that physically intervened to save his life. But then, there's a fascinating psychological interpretation. What if the Black Aeroplane was actually a subconscious manifestation of the pilot's own deep-seated courage and flying expertise? Is it possible his brain, in a moment of ultimate life-threatening trauma, projected a hallucination to guide him, forcing his own hands to perform the precise maneuvers needed to survive that storm?
The author actually drops some really interesting clues for us by playing with linguistic depth. The word black here is doing double duty. It doesn't just mean the darkest color. In the context of this specific story, black means without light, just like the unlit airplane. And crucially, it also means without hope or a deeply depressing situation. The pilot didn't just fly into dark weather, he flew into a deeply hopeless situation, which makes his escape all the more miraculous.
All of which leaves us with the ultimate question of this explainer. It's the exact same question the pilot asks himself at the very end of his ordeal, and it's what I want you to chew on as we wrap up today. Who actually helped him arrive safely, without a compass, a radio, or any fuel? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane, flying in the storm, without lights? Was it a ghost? Was it a miracle? Or was it just the sheer, undeniable power of the human will to survive? I am going to leave that entirely up to you to decide.